Hey guys, welcome back. Today we are going to continue talking about Kislev, picking up where we left off with the Endless War. Kislev breeds hardy people, not only because of the harsh climate and generally infertile lands, but also due to the constant depredations by raiders from the Chaos Wastes. These are usually constant, small-scale affairs, as individual war bands and tribes head south in search of glory and plunder. Known by the Kislevites as Giazak, these raiding parties are an ever-present threat to settlements and caravans north of the Linsk, and some even venture as far south as to cross the Linsk itself. The incursions are short-lived, lasting perhaps only a season at a time, and either end when winter draws in, or they are driven back by the armies of the Kislevites. These armies are drawn from the scattered stanitsas and towns of the Kislev Oblast, which each provide a standing force of warriors, much like a militia. Ungol horse archers patrol the most northern reaches of the country, while settlements with a great gospodar heritage pool their resources to create squadrons, or rotas as they are known, of the famed winged lancers. This tradition is continued by the cities, and the Tsarina can command a large number of winged lancers, drawn from the richest families and their household troops. Occasionally, a particularly powerful chieftain or warlord will rise in Norska, or amongst the tribes of the Kurgan people. They weld together a rough confederation of several tribes, and launch attacks into Kislev. At these times, the various rotas of Kislev are drawn together into larger army groups called polks. These polks are invariably under the command of a noble of gospodar heritage, and are the closest Kislev has to a standing army. Sometimes a single polk is enough to see off the threat, but other times 2, 3, or more polks may combine their forces to counter an ambitious marauder warlord. During the Great War against Chaos, when the half-demonic warlord Azavar Kul drove his armies into Kislev, accompanied by legions of demonic creatures and bestial war bands, every polk in the land was gathered to oppose the threat, and yet the Kislevites were sorely pressed to hold the tide. It is a testament to their stubbornness and pride that they held as long as they did, allowing an alliance of men, dwarves, and elves, led by Magnus the Pious, to break the siege of the capital and drive back the immense horde. Every year, the Kayazak grow more daring, their attacks driving deeper and deeper across the Linsk, until the settlements outlying Ehrengrad and Kislev have come under threat. Yet Kislevites and their ancestors have spilt blood every year to take and protect their lands, and whilst one Kislevite draws breath, there will be one who will defend against the northern hordes. Allies of Kislev. Although Kislevites would like the world to think otherwise, their nation does not stand alone against the perils of chaos. Although they must endure the constant raids and attacks of the northern marauders, in times of need, when the followers of chaos have gathered in great numbers, the Kislevites have received aid from others. Most commonly forces from the Empire, and in particular Ostland, the Ostermark, and Talabekland, march north to assist against these larger incursions. During the Great War against Chaos, when the hordes of the north stretched like a sea across the taiga, the elves and dwarves came to the aid of the men. In return, it has been known for Kislevites to aid the dwarves, sometimes to clear the mountain passes, and in particular the high pass of foes such as Skaven. Greenskins and marauders. Excuse me, there was a period at the end of that sentence, and then it picked up again. Both respect the stubbornness they see in each other, though Kislevites cannot understand how dwarves can spend so much time underground, while a dwarf generally thinks that all that open sky drives the Kislevites a little bit insane. Though the great forests of the Empire give way to the increasingly desolate oblast of Kislev, the country is not without small woods and forests, some of which are rumored to be the homes of isolated wood elf communities. The wood elves distrust all other races, even their own kin of Ulthuan, but when ancient foes rear their heads, they have been known to make common cause with others. There are very few incidences of this in Kislev history, but they are there. Battles against beastmen when unexpected wood elf allies have attacked the chaotic creatures from their hiding places, and occasion when a Kislev patrol has been drawn to the sound of fighting to find a small wood elf community embattled by orcs or marauders. It is fortunate for the Empire that the Kislevites would sooner cut their own throats than leave their beloved homeland, for Kislev is their home, and to abandon it would be unthinkable. There is a streak of stubbornness that many suspect motivates the Kislevites to stay, for to leave would be to admit defeat, and such a thing is unacceptable to a warrior nation. As the popular saying goes, Kislev is land, and land is Kislev. Kislev language. The language spoken by the people of Kislev is known as Kislevarian, and is a blend of the original Ungol and Ropsmen tongues, with the addition of the languages brought by the migrating Gospodars. Over the centuries, this has become the dominant of the three languages, with the addition of some Reichsspiel words and conventions from the south. There are, of course, many different dialects within Kislev, and the language is spoken somewhat differently in different regions of the country, though the differences between these broad dialects are slight. There is almost never any difficulty in mutual understanding, and non-Kislevarian speakers are generally unable to distinguish them without conscious effort. The regional differences correspond mainly to old tribal divisions from hundreds of years ago, and the most significant of these, in terms of numbers of speakers, are Sudavaran, which is spoken in the south, Krivaran, which is spoken in the east and center of the country, and Dolvaran, which is the principal language of the north, and of the tribal raiders who plague the farmers. In the Staniusas of the far south, the older tribes and families keep alive the distinctive Gorelsk dialect, said to be the unpolluted language of the Ropsmen, and they take great pride in their culture and language, which is said to be much more musical than standard Kislevarian. Some city dwellers, especially the less affluent population, also have their own distinctive dialects. An example of this is Zavaran, still spoken by some of the population of Kislev, though these city dialects are now mostly extinct due to assimilation with standard Kislevaran. For this is Kislev. Snow swirled in blinding eddies of freezing white around the four horsemen as they rode towards the dark shape of the stanitsa, the log walls of the village a welcome sight after traveling for days across the bleak steppe. Dieter shivered in the depths of his furs, grateful beyond words to see some sign of civilization, though he knew that such a word was relative in this wild, savage country. His horse stumbled in the thick snow, and he heard Torbeck curse as his beast did likewise. The dwarf had not liked the idea of riding, but there had been little choice. To stand any chance of catching the slavers, they had to ride. "I swear this beast is deliberately trying to unseat me," he grumbled. No one replied, not even the belligerent swordsman Marcus, who usually never passed up an opportunity to make fun of the dour warrior of Karazakarak. The sunlight was dying, and their Dolgan guide had pushed them hard over the last week to the point where even conversation required effort. They had traveled through endless miles of cold steppe that stretched off into the distance in a vast, unbroken swath of desolate emptiness and long days, enduring a land where the sky seemed somehow wider than he could ever remember it being back in Ludendorff. The dark forests of the Empire narrowed your view of the world, but here the land spread out in great open spaces that made a man feel utterly insignificant. He'd heard men had gone mad in the wilderness of Kislev, and having spent the better part of the last few weeks traveling beneath the empty skies of this rugged land, he could well believe it. Zakir, their guide, shouted toward the stanitsa in the song-like tongue of his people, the howling wind snatching away much of the sense of it as far as Dieter could make out. "Fat chance of them letting us in," snorted Torbeck. "Why should they?" "Come on," said Marcus. "What harm could we do them? We're only 4 riders." "Aye," agreed Dieter. "We know that, but they don't. For all they know, there could be 100 Gyazak concealed in the blizzard, just waiting for us to block the gate from closing once it's open." "Bloody Kislevites," said Marcus. "Don't they ever relax?" "Would you, if you lived so close to Troll Country?" asked Dieter. "Stop being so damned logical," snapped Marcus. "So you're saying it's another night on the steppe for us? Great." Dieter opened his mouth to reply, but held his tongue as he heard an answering cry from the wall ahead. He held up his hand as he tried to follow the shouted conversation between Zakir and the men on the walls. But the little Kisleveran he had picked up was insufficient for him to make much sense of what was being said. Closer now, he could see the village had been built on the skirts of a low mound of earth, with a sturdy ziti raised within a rocky stockade, and a number of white-painted buildings clustered within the outer palisade wall of sharpened logs. Dieter could see warriors with long spears and bows over the top of the logs, thick furs protecting them from the worst of the cold. The hairs on the back of his neck stiffened as he realized there were probably a dozen arrows aimed squarely at his heart right now. Zakir circled his mount, a rowan-colored steppe pony with a wide chest and mean temperament, before the thick timbers of the stanitsa's gate, shouting and laughing with the gate guards. "What in Sigmar's name is he doing?" said Marcus. "He's laughing," said Dieter, similarly puzzled. "That's it then," said Torbeck. "The steppes got to him, and the bugger's gone mad. We're all going to die out here, and there's no way for a son of Grungy to die, frozen to death in this wasteland. There's not even a decent mountain in sight." "I don't think we're going to die here," said Dieter as he heard the creak of timbers and the sound of a heavy locking bar being removed from the gate. The gate slowly opened outwards, pushing mounds of snow ahead of it, and Zakir beckoned them forward. Dieter dug his heels into his mount's flanks and rode towards the opening. Torbeck and Marcus quickly followed him. What did you say to them? Asked Dieter as he reached Zakir. How did you persuade them to open the gate? The shaven-headed Dolgan shrugged and said, Persuade? What mean? Why are they letting us in? Zakir just asked to spend night, said the Dolgan, as if explaining something to a simpleton. Is rude to refuse hospitality of house to stranger. And Hetman of Zafarov not be dishonored by leaving us out here to die is very cold. Too cold to be out here wasting time talking, agreed Marcus as he rode for the gate. The lad's right, said Torbeck, forcing his mount to follow the swordsman. We could all do with a warm bed for a change. Dwarves speak true, said Zakir. Go, pay respects to Hetman, and then eat and drink by fire. Dieter couldn't argue with that and guided his horse through the gates and into the stanitsa. Inside, the huts and barns of the village were swathed in thick shawls of snow. The earth within the palisade walls iron hard and crisscrossed with tracks. Looking up to the inside face of the walls, Dieter could see a dozen or so men patrolling a timber rampart, watchful for any signs of Giazak or worse. Living this far north in Kislev, human raiders could be the least of the stanitsa's worries. After seeing to their horses, Zakir and a warrior named Aiden led the group up the slopes of the mound towards the thick-walled Zal, its narrow windows shuttered and its heavy iron-banded door shut tight against the elements. A curl of fragrant smoke rose from the roof, and Dieter saw the building reflected the Kislevites as a people, practical, dour, and uninviting. Aiden hammered the haft of his spear against the door. Seconds later it was hauled open, and they hurriedly made their way inside. Heat assailed Dieter, and he blinked in the sudden light. 2 fires burned in wide hearths, filling the hall with a warm orange glow, and the mouth-watering aroma of cooking meat came from slowly turning spits. Groups of Kislevites sitting on colorful blankets sang rowdy songs, and men in long shirts danced and capered around the fires to rhythmic clapping, while wild music was played on stringed harp and violin-like instruments. The riot of color was in stark contrast to the bleak whiteness they had just ridden through, and Dieter was rendered speechless by the vividness of the sight before him. Long-haired women in scarlet shawls handed plates of meat and vegetables around, and skins of drink were passed between laughing men. At the far end of the long hall, a powerful man with a shock of dark hair and a long, drooping mustache sat on an elaborately carved chair atop a wooden dais. He clapped in time with the music, a tall axe propped up next to him. What's going on? Said Marcus. Are they having a party? Party, said Zakir. No, this is Goodness, I pronounced it properly the first time, I think. Zafarov, stanitsa, and this night is a good time to eat and drink. Here, drink some kumis. Fair enough, said Dieter, accepting the proffered leather wineskin, and taking a mouthful of the spirit. Having drunk kumis before, he knew to only take small sips, for the liquor was far stronger than anything produced in the Empire. The fiery spirit burned on the way down, but he was grateful for its warmth. Come, said Zakir, gripping his arm and leading him towards the man at the end of the long hall. Must pay respects to Hetman. Dieter was unable to reconcile the energy and laughter he saw around him with the grim, unforgiving people of Kislev he had met previously, his heart warming to these northern folk as he saw the hetman rise from his chair to greet them. The man was tall and powerfully built, the thick furs and colorful clothing unable to conceal his mighty physique and martial bearing. Dieter nodded respectfully to the hetman, as did Torbeck and Marcus. Me, Osman Marmadov, said the hetman in a booming voice of thickly accented Reichspiel. You welcome in Zafarov. My home is your home. We are grateful indeed, said Dieter. You honor us with your hospitality. We will, of course, compensate you for the food and shelter. Compensate? I not understand. Zakir waved his hand and said something in hurried Kislev to Marmadov before turning and hissing at Dieter. Not offer money is insult to his hospitality. Sorry, said Dieter. I didn't know. I tell him you will tell tales of your lands, said Zakir. That is price of shelter. Ah, well that we can do, said Dorbeck proudly. I have thousands of years of tales for him. Marmadov stepped close to Dieter, and he could smell the kumis and meat on the man's breath. Eat, drink. Tell me why you travel through Rasporisa. Dieter knew the word meant roadlessness. The deadly featurelessness of the snows brought to Kislev and rendered direction and maps irrelevant. To travel at such times was tantamount to suicide, but they had a job to do, and the snows had come upon them suddenly. We are tracking a band of Kazakh slavers who attacked the Natavan Stanitsa, said Dieter. The hetman's daughter was among those taken. Marmadov's face darkened, and he nodded in understanding, spitting into the fire as he said, Kazakh no good filth, prey upon people of the land and give nothing back. Hetman of Natavan sends you to find his daughter. Why? He has no sons, no warriors. His sons are dead, said Dorbeck, killed in battle. And his warriors are few. The hetman shrugged. His good way to die. When you find Kazakh, you kill them. Zafarov Stanitsa will give you food and warriors for hunt. Thank you, said Dieter, bowing to Marmadov. Is of no matter, said Marmadov. Rest and eat. Tomorrow you hunt Kazakh. As the hetman spoke, a sudden darkness fell upon the hall, and all heat fled from its walls, as the fires gutted in their hearths. Dieter gripped his sword hilt as Marmadov swept up the axe from beside his chair. All song ceased, and the music ended as warriors snatched up their spears and swords from beneath their blankets and leapt to their feet. Dieter felt a crawling sensation of dread work its way up his spine in the sudden silence, hearing a distant howl on the winds rattling the shutters. What's happening? Shouted Marcus, his sword already drawn. Be silent, roared Marmadov, looking up at the smoke hole in the hall's roof. The Riznie Koziain rides the wind. If we are lucky, it pass on its way. Dieter followed the hetman's gaze, watching the darkness beyond the hole for any sign of movement, wishing he knew what he was looking for. The only sound in the hall was the crackle of the embers and the mournful howl of the wind beyond the walls. Dieter held his breath and glanced over at Marcus and Dorbeck. The dwarf had his axe at the ready, and Marcus was tensed for a fight. They, too, could sense the creeping fear that slid into the hall like an assassin's blade. Marmadov held up his hand, and Dieter could hear the faint sound of booming wings, as though something immense flew nearby. Even as he heard the sound, it faded, and the unreasoning fear he had felt began to fade. For the space of 10 heartbeats, nothing moved. Then the darkness lifted, and the fires roared back into full-throated life. Marmadov put down his axe and shouted something in Kislevarian. The musicians began to play, and the people of the hall once again took up the songs. What in the name of Sigmar's blood was that? Breathed Marcus. Marmadov placed a meaty fist on the swordsman's shoulder and said, Not speak of it, bad luck, but insisted Marmotov sternly, is our way. Respected. Aye, lad, said Torbeck. Do as the man says. Aren't you worried that thing might come back? Said Dieter. Marmotov shrugged and took a mighty swig from a wineskin. Is of no matter. Tomorrow we may be dead, so tonight we drink and eat and sing. For this is Kislev. And that is where we are going to stop for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.